A ceasefire agreement between Russia and Ukraine are on hold for now, but some progress has been made evacuating civilians from the besieged port city of Mariupol. A convoy of more than 160 vehicles has left Mariupol after several days of uncertainty. Meanwhile, Russia's bombardment of Ukrainian cities continues, with at least 3 people killed as forces shell the capital, Kyiv. A fourth round of ceasefire talks between Ukraine and Russia will take place tomorrow.
The President of Ukraine has issued an ominous warning to his European neighbours. It's only a matter of time, he says, before Russian missiles hit your cities. Volodymyr Zelensky was speaking on what he called a black day. Russia hit a Ukrainian military base on NATO's doorstep, just 25 kilometres from Poland. 35 people were killed and more than 100 injured at this crucial hub that NATO used to beef up Ukraine's defences and train its soldiers. The ABC's Sean Rubenstein-Dunlop reports from the western city of Yavoriv.
Early morning near the Polish border. Russian missiles light up the sky.
Down! It's a plane.
American voices can be heard as a Ukrainian military base is being attacked.
That's another one. No. It's another explosion.
Several hours later, the scene is chaotic. This is the International Centre for Peacekeeping and Security, where NATO soldiers, including the US, have for years trained Ukrainian forces. A crater shows the impact of a Russian missile strike. You can fit a large truck inside, the soldier says. This is Russian peace for you. The sprawling facility is in a small town. Locals now fear the Russians have set their sights west.
It sounded like the earth was shaking. I saw bright lights, like when missiles fly, and it was that sound. But it was 3 times when the earth shook that strong that I was afraid I would die.
Dozens were killed, more than 130 injured, and those figures could climb.
Some soldiers are at this time under the building. We are trying to pull them out.
There are still soldiers in the rubble?
Yes, and they are alive.
For hours now, ambulances have been arriving, loading injured people one by one to take them for further medical help. This attack in this small town has shattered the sense of safety here, far from the battlefields and so close to the Polish border.
People are very scared now. It's not that far. Any missile could not only hit here, but Poland as well.
The Ukrainian president was visiting injured soldiers at a military hospital near the capital, handing out medals and boosting morale, and warning no country in the region is safe.
If you don't close our skies, then it's just a matter of time before Russian missiles will hit your territory, NATO's territory, houses of NATO citizens.
Russia said the Ukrainian government was using the Yavoriv base to train foreign fighters and store weapons from the West. It had warned it would strike at these targets, but it's the proximity to NATO countries that has caused alarm that this conflict is escalating. Sean Rubenstein-Dunlop, ABC News, Yavoriv.
An American filmmaker has been killed in the Ukrainian town of Irpin near the capital, Kyiv. It's the first reported death of a foreign journalist covering the war in Ukraine. Brent Renault was gathering material for a report about refugees when his car was fired on at a checkpoint. His friend and colleague Juan Arredondo was also shot. He described the attack as he arrived in hospital for treatment.
We crossed the checkpoint and they start shooting at us. So the driver turned around and they kept shooting. It's 2 of us. My friend is Brent Renault, and he's been shot and left behind.
Ukrainian authorities have blamed Russian forces for the shooting, calling it a deliberate attack. Australia and the Netherlands have started court action against Russia for the downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17. The passenger plane was shot down over Ukraine nearly 8 years ago. 298 people died, including 38 Australians. Political reporter James Glenday joins me now. James, what can you tell us about this legal action?
So, Anita, basically Australia and the Netherlands are going to argue that Russia breached international rules and civil aviation rules by allowing one of its Buk missiles to be deployed to the conflict zone in the east of Ukraine in 2014, where it was tragically ultimately used to shoot down the passenger plane. Now, both these countries are taking the case to an aviation agency, which is part of the United Nations, in the hope that it will find the Kremlin is legally responsible under international law and potential sanctions or even reparations could follow. The Foreign Minister, Marise Payne, says she's only doing this for the victims.
This is an important step in the fight for truth, justice and accountability for all of the victims of MH17, including the 38 who called Australia home.
The Foreign Minister, Marise Payne there. Now, of course, it seems unlikely that Russia is going to care a lot about this at the moment. It's long denied any culpability, and as it's invaded Ukraine in recent weeks, it's been accused of doing things like breaching humanitarian corridors and shelling residential areas. And in response to the invasion, it's worth noting, Juanita, that today the government has also announced sanctions on an additional 33 very wealthy Russians, including Roman Abramovich, the high-profile owner of English football club Chelsea.
James Glenday reporting there.